I want to turn now to the financial health of a broader swath of Americans. We're joined now by Andrew Yang, who is the former presidential candidate, of course. He is now involved in something called the Project 100 campaign, which aims to give $1,000 grants to 100,000 families who receive SNAP benefits. And Andrew, if you're there, if you could unmute yourself so we can chat about this program. Obviously, there's also been a lot of government stimulus, right? And people given money by the government directly. Why do you think this sort of additional effort is also needed?
Hope you can hear me.
We can, yes.
All right, fantastic. Now, Project 100 is the largest philanthropic direct cash transfer in our nation's history. And the fact is, this stimulus that we've been receiving, at least many of us have been receiving, is not enough. Where if you got $1,200 after essentially a month of quarantine, you're paying off last month's bills, and then this month and next month's bills are right around the corner. Most people have had their incomes either eliminated or reduced or impacted, or at a minimum are facing greater uncertainty. So the fact that philanthropists have stepped up to put money directly into the hands of tens of thousands of struggling American families is the right thing to do. We need to have the stimulus check not be a one-time thing, but make it predictable and monthly for the duration of this crisis.
Hey, Andrew, nice to see you. When you think about the duration of this crisis, of course, when you were running for president, you had said for forever, right? For people to be able to receive the universal basic income, or the freedom dividend, as you called it, kind of in perpetuity. When you think about Congress right now, as we understand it, Ro Khanna and Tim Ryan have both put a number on that, saying that we should be paying Americans $2,000 per month for the duration of the crisis, plus perhaps additional down the future. Do you believe that Congress is capable of passing something for perhaps longer post-pandemic?
I think Congress is very capable of that, because that's what the American people want. I saw a poll that just came out that said the majority of Americans in both parties want to have the stimulus extend for the duration of the crisis. And I think that Ro Khanna and Tim Ryan's bill says that they should extend until the economy is back to pre-crisis levels. The brutal truth is that many of these millions of jobs that we've lost are not coming back. Macy's furloughed most of its 130,000 employees. How many employees do you think they're really going to hire back in 6 months, 8 months? So Ro Khanna, Tim Ryan, and the other legislators have it 100% right that we should make these payments indefinite until we're back on our feet. And that might not be for a very long time. I do think we should just do this in perpetuity. We can 100% afford it. And the money is going to go right back into our local communities, into Main Street businesses, bars, restaurants, daycare, Little League signups. That's what the American people are going to want, because we're getting this money right now. And I have a feeling that most Americans are very, very excited to see those payments in their bank accounts.
And then thinking about the philanthropic side of things, of course, you've teamed up, you have Humanity Forward as well, pushing this initiative to help supplement these incomes. But just thinking about people like Jack Dorsey, right, who has committed, in addition to other COVID-related things, to investing in the future of UBI. Have you been in talks with him? Is there any way that you can support him and his endeavors?
I'm happy to say that Jack and I have been in touch, and he's committed to seeing the country and the world through this crisis, but he's also committed to a vision of universal basic income, because he sees very clearly what the future holds for millions of Americans' livelihoods. So this is here to stay. Universal basic income is going to be on the national agenda this year, and people like Jack and me and Ro Khanna and Tim Ryan are going to keep pushing this. I also just want to say, on a personal note, thank you, Melody, because you're one of the first journalists that interviewed me when I was running for president, back when the Yang Gang wasn't really a thing. So just wanted to express my thanks to you.
Andrew, hi, Rick Newman here. I'm disappointed you're not wearing your math pin for our audience to see. Maybe you've got it on your jacket off to the side or something.
I do, it's over there.
I want to ask you about your plan to pay for UBI. If I recall correctly, you proposed a 10% value added tax as the financing mechanism. I mean, how do you see that even being plausible? Would that require Democratic control of Congress? And even then, it seems hard that you could get some even moderate Democrats to vote for that. How do you see that happening?
When I was campaigning and I said, hey, Amazon, $1 trillion tech company, paying zero in taxes, does that seem right to you? Americans on both sides of the aisle don't think that that's appropriate. Starbucks, same thing. Netflix, same thing. And you can go to the most pro-business Republican and say, Amazon paying zero taxes, thumbs up, and they will say, no, that's not right. So there is bipartisan consensus around a need to get money into Americans' hands, but there's also bipartisan consensus that our most successful companies should be paying more than zero in taxes. Now, my mechanism, as you described, was a value-added tax, in part because it would harness the gains from the biggest winners in our economy, and it's impossible to, frankly, wriggle your way out of. You can't offshore it. You can't do all of these shell games that many of the big multinationals are expert at. So I'm very, very confident that we're going to see that putting money into people's hands is good for the economy and that we can pay for it, in part because the money doesn't disappear after it comes into our accounts. It goes right back into our local economy, creates jobs, creates new tax revenue.
Andrew, it's Adam Shapiro. I was curious if you've crunched the numbers on the immediate crisis. Would it be a better use of the funds that we keep replenishing PPP and we have these stimulus programs and $60 billion for the airlines to put a kind of national stop, if possible, on pay, and then have the federal government just send everybody $1,000 or a figure to cover food and essentials till we get past the 3-month period? Would that be cheaper than what we're doing?
This is a great observation, Adam. And one of the things that I think we missed the boat on is that the government should have suspended many payments and actually become the buyer. If you can imagine the government saying to landlords, hey, your tenants aren't paying, we're going to pay. And then you could essentially suspend the economy, give us all enough money so that we can pay for our basic needs, and then restart the economy when it's appropriate. The problem right now is that our government is trying to get money into the hands of small businesses and individuals and big businesses and schools and hospitals. And then there are bottlenecks in that process, where if you have millions of people going to their state unemployment offices, filing for unemployment, they're just on hold over and over again. And our offices aren't set up to serve that many people that quickly. It would have been much more effective for us to do what you just suggested, which is just say, look, send the government the invoice, don't bother your tenants, your payees, your small businesses. We just pay everyone enough to survive. That would have been a better approach. We missed that window. And right now we're falling victim to the fact that our bureaucracies are not set up to process payments at this scale this quickly.
Andrew, it's Julie again. I want to ask you about the presidential election, switch gears a little bit. There is a poll that came out today from CNBC that said President Trump and Joe Biden are in a deadlock in 6 key states. So when it comes to you, I wanted to ask you what the Yang Gang's up to. I mean, this was sort of a famously mobilized support block for you during the primary. What are they doing now in terms of supporting Biden, and how effective do you think grassroots support is going to be for him in the election?
There was a poll that came out before I suspended that said 42% of my supporters would not support the Democratic nominee in the general. And this to me is the crucial block that Joe has to win over in order to win in those 6 states and around the country. And so to me, the Yang Gang can play a pivotal role where we shore up this swing group, but also young digital natives. The fact is, Joe is weaker on the internet than Trump, and we can potentially help Joe with that. I am 100% committed to defeating Donald Trump in the fall and helping Joe in any way I can. And I don't think that 100% of the Yang Gang is going to come with me on that. But I think if we can turn the dial up so that greater than 58% of them do, we can be the difference maker in Joe's victory this fall.
Andrew, I know there was some confusion after you went on the Breakfast Club and mentioned that Biden said you would have a cabinet position if you did endorse him. Can you give us an update there? Do you have a role in the administration if you want it? What's the status?
You know, Joe and I have just had general conversations. There's never been anything even remotely official. But Joe has said that we need all hands on deck, and I agree with him. Certainly, I want to serve the country, and I've been very open over and over again that if that's as part of an administration, then I would take that opportunity.
And a follow on that, how exactly can you help Biden on the internet? You know, even just anecdotally tweeting that you're going to be on Yahoo Finance maybe half an hour ago, it's already garnered so much activity and engagement, to be honest, in ways that a lot of our guests do not necessarily attract. How do you anticipate really galvanizing the Biden momentum?
Well, I hope to lead by example, where I'm 100% committed to helping Joe win. And I believe that many people that follow me and support me will follow me in this as well. And perhaps the notion of me being part of a Biden administration will be appealing to many of the people that supported me because we have a massive nation rebuilding project ahead of us. And it's going to be a multi-year, even a generational effort. We need to get started on that as quickly as possible. I know that I want to be a part of that, and helping Joe win, I think, is the big first step that we need to take.
And, you know, notably, you were the only person of color remaining on the stage toward the final months of the primary. When you think about your role as an Asian American leader, I understand you wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post that was met with a lot of heat from the Asian American community for telling us or asking us to be more American in some regard. I know you responded to some of those comments in an interview with Next Shark, but can you address sort of your role, how you see xenophobia, especially during this time, as President Trump continues to call the virus the Chinese virus?
It's heartbreaking what's happening to Asian Americans around the country. And to me, this is one of the pivotal issues for Trump, is that if he can succeed in framing the coronavirus as the China virus and a foreign threat, then it actually distracts from his incompetent leadership that led us to lose 2 crucial months of contact tracing and isolating patients that would have saved lives and, in all likelihood, would have mitigated some of this economic carnage that we're now living. And so, to me, it's not just wrong and evil to characterize this virus in racial terms. It's also going to be a key factor in whether he's successful in getting reelected by making the case to the American people that this was somehow like a foreign effort as opposed to a phenomenon that, frankly, experts have been warning about for years ahead of time.
Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. Andrew Yang, former presidential candidate. Thanks so much for your insight on stimulus and everything else that we have talked about. Melody obviously also has to get kudos from us for being one of the early ones to reach out to you during the campaign. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you all. And I confess, I'm here because of Melody. So have a great time today. And yeah, stay safe out there.
Thanks, Andrew.
You too, Andrew.